In the heart of the Horn of Africa lies one of the continent's most overlooked geopolitical tensions: Ethiopia's struggle for sea access and Djibouti's strategic effort to keep it dependent. For more than 2 decades, Ethiopia, Africa's second most populated nation and one of its fastest growing economies, has relied on a single lifeline to the world: the port of Djibouti. Today, nearly 95% of Ethiopia's imports and exports pass through Djibouti. And for Djibouti, this dependency is not a coincidence. It is policy. This documentary explores how Djibouti became Ethiopia's maritime gatekeeper, why it fears Ethiopia gaining another port, and how Egypt's rising influence in Djibouti is reshaping the future of the Red Sea and Ethiopia's place in it. To understand today's crisis, we must go back to 1993, when Eritrea became an independent state after a 30-year war. For Ethiopia, the split meant much more than a political shift. It meant the loss of its coastline. Overnight, Ethiopia became the world's most populated landlocked country. At first, Ethiopia used the port of Assab under a transitional agreement with Eritrea, but after the 1998 to 2000 border war, the route collapsed. Ethiopia needed a new maritime partner, and Djibouti stepped in. What began as a temporary arrangement evolved into a deep structural dependency.
አሁን ካለንበት ተጨባጭ ሁኔታ አንፃር በአሰብ ወደብ መጠቀም ከኛ ይልቅ ይበልጥ ኤርትራን መንግስት ይጠቅማል የሚል ድምዳሜ ላይ ነው የደረሰው። ስለዚህ በኤርትራ የሚኖረው ሁኔታ ለዘለቄታው የሚመች እየሆነ እስኪሄድ ድረስ ይህን ጥያቄ በእንጥልጥል ብናቆየው ይሻለናል ነው ያልነው። ለዘላለሙ በአሰብ ወደብ የመጠቀምን ጉዳይ የዓለም አቀፍ ሕግን ተንተርሰን አናነሳም ያልንበት ምክንያት የለንም።
By the mid-2000s, Djibouti realized Ethiopia's landlocked status was its greatest economic opportunity. Today, more than 40% of Djibouti's GDP comes directly or indirectly from port services to Ethiopia. A diversification of Ethiopia's access through Somaliland, Kenya or Eritrea would reduce Djibouti's income, influence and strategic relevance, and that is why Djibouti has every incentive to keep Ethiopia reliant on its ports, and no incentive to see Ethiopia gain alternatives. In early 2024, Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed made a bold announcement: Ethiopia needs access to the sea, peacefully and through negotiation. He invited neighbouring states to offer port access in exchange for equity, investment or economic partnerships. The reaction from the region was immediate. Somalia rejected the idea. Eritrea dismissed it. Sudan ignored it. Djibouti publicly stayed silent. But privately, it took notice. For Djibouti, Ethiopia's request signalled a potential existential threat to its economy.
Our development doesn't depend on Ethiopia exclusively. That is not acceptable. This is what we are doing, and this is why we...
A second port option for Ethiopia would instantly reduce Djibouti's leverage. A third option could collapse its dominance entirely. This is the context in which Djibouti's foreign minister, now African Union chairperson, suddenly offered Ethiopia the Tadjoura port for joint development. Many analysts saw it as a strategic countermove, a way to claim, "Look, Ethiopia, we are offering you access," while knowing Ethiopia would likely decline because Tadjoura lacks depth, infrastructure and trade viability. If Ethiopia rejected the offer, Djibouti could say, "You see, Ethiopia doesn't really need sea access. This is political." But Ethiopia didn't take the bait, it simply stayed silent. In the months following Ethiopia's sea access request, Djibouti's foreign policy took a noticeable turn. Egypt, historically Ethiopia's geopolitical rival, began expanding its footprint in Djibouti, the most visible sign. A high-level meeting between Djibouti's Ports and Free Zones Authority and Egypt's El Saudi Electric, followed by preparations for a major Egyptian delegation visit. The agreements include a 20-megawatt solar park to power Djibouti's Doraleh container terminal, a 10-hectare Egyptian logistics hub for exports, and the biggest piece, a new container terminal with a 1,450-metre quay and 5 million TEU capacity. This is not ordinary economic cooperation. This is strategic positioning. Egypt is inserting itself directly into the infrastructure that handles nearly all Ethiopian trade. For Cairo, this achieves several goals at once. 1. Pressure Ethiopia over the Nile. If Egypt influences Djibouti's port system, Ethiopia's export lifeline becomes exposed, at least indirectly. 2. Contain Ethiopia's regional expansion. Egypt fears a stronger Ethiopia in population, military power, and hydropower capacity. 3. Surround Ethiopia through its neighbours. Egypt already has a security partnership with Eritrea, military cooperation with Somalia. And now economic embedding in Djibouti from north, east and southeast. Ethiopia is increasingly encircled. Why is Djibouti resisting Ethiopia's search for alternative sea access? The answer is simple: survival. Reason 1. Economic dependency. Djibouti would lose billions if Ethiopia shifted even 20 to 30% of its trade to another port. Reason 2. Strategic relevance. Djibouti hosts US base, Chinese base, French base, Japanese base, European naval missions. These powers choose Djibouti because of Ethiopia's dependency. If Ethiopia gained alternative access, Djibouti's geopolitical importance could decline. Reason 3. Leverage ports give Djibouti quiet, powerful influence over Ethiopia. Losing that leverage would change the regional balance of power. This is why Djibouti's response to Ethiopia's request has been slow, cautious, and strategically calculated. Ethiopia now faces a shifting regional landscape. 1. Djibouti is aligning closer with Egypt, which means Ethiopia's trade routes may now contain a new layer of geopolitical tensions. 2. Ethiopia's maritime strategy is fragmented. For years, Ethiopia assumed Djibouti's cooperation was guaranteed. That era is ending. 3. The Red Sea competition is intensifying. Egypt, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, China, the US, Qatar, and Turkey are all expanding their interests. Ethiopia is the only major state without a coastline. 4. Dependency is now a strategic vulnerability if political tensions flare over GERD, Somaliland, MOU, Somalia relations, or regional security. Djibouti could become a pressure point. 5. Ethiopia must diversify urgently. Potential options include Berbera, Somaliland, via investment and expanded agreements. Port Sudan, long-term once Sudan stabilizes Assab, only possible if Eritrea reopens diplomatically. Lamu, Kenya, expensive but viable as a southern corridor. The era of relying on one port is no longer sustainable. Djibouti's rise as Ethiopia's maritime gatekeeper was not accidental. It was shaped by history, reinforced by economics, and protected by geopolitics. Today, as Egypt expands its footprint in Djibouti's ports, Ethiopia's dependency carries new risks, ones that could shape the region for decades. The question now is simple. Will Ethiopia continue relying on a single route, or will it redefine its maritime destiny before time runs out? This is the unfolding story of the Horn of Africa, where geography, politics, and economics collide.